Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear me. I'm just checking my system output and I couldn't hear the intro thing on mine, so it looks like it's recording. If it's not, please tell me in the chat and I'll schedule a new stream. But I'll diagnose this problem later. Anyway, typical wavelength audio issues. Right, don't buy Elgato. Anyway. Moving on. So, what are we doing? We're writing pick and place machine software. Who am I? I'm Dominic. What are we doing? We're doing the MakerPnP project, which aims to create PCB assembly software, including planning and pick and place machine software for machines like this one. And part of this is working with EDA designs and building list of placements and having interactive placement lists and things like that. So let's have a look at the software as it is today and what task in hand is. So we've got a Gerber viewer, which, if you remember in the last stream I went over this. So the Gerber viewer allows you to view the manufacturing files. It's currently got features to turn off individual layers, so you can see layers at a time. Let's turn on a couple of useful ones for assembly. This is kind of the usual kind of thing you want when you're doing assembly, to know where things are. Assembly layer, board outline, and a mask layer, so you can see where all the pads are essentially. The paste mask is also useful, but it doesn't tell you about the through-hole parts. But you know, yeah, and then a silk layer as well. Sometimes your silk layer's got the names of the parts on it. If you're working on tiny PCBs like this one, then there probably isn't enough space to put it. So, Gerber viewer, keep that in your head. Now, that's all well and good. But we've got this planning software stuff that we've been working on for a while now, and the idea is that for a PCB job, assembly job, you've got the various different phases, the various different technologies that you use, your list of placements for each design variant, your mapping of design variants to panel unit, because the panel can have lots of units on it and it can have different designs on it, and then each design can have a slightly different variation, like red or green LEDs or something like that, you know, or expensive and cheap. Yeah, so we've got designs, design variants, all this kind of thing. So in order to display Gerber files for a design or like a job, right, you need to have a definition of a PCB, which we had, sort of. We have a very loose definition of a PCB. Our PCB is defined as a list of units, a list of designs, a list of design to unit mappings, and and in the project, a list of design variants to design to PCB units. Brain hurts after talking about this for a while. So, the project cares about design variations, design variants, but the PCB, if you're defining a PCB, doesn't. So what I've done over the last couple of weeks or so is extract the definition of a PCB out of the project. So now you can open a PCB file and it shows you the definition of a PCB. In this UI, you can list the designs that you use. You can assign these designs to the various units of the PCB. You can change the amount of units of the PCB. And I could assign design C to this one and then change these to design B. And then if I wanted to, you know, unassign, well, unassign design A from 1 to 6, I can do that, or unassign, things like this, right? So you've got the mappings of designs to PCB units. So one of the things that we want to do is display the Gerbers while you're navigating the list of components and the placements for the PCB. So where we've got our list of placements, when I click on one of these, I want it to show the Gerber viewers for the top of the PCB and locate the view where the component should be on the PCB. But this is complicated by the fact that you have multiple designs on a PCB. So if you imagine a panel in a grid of 1 to 6, and your job is to place this component, which is on PCB unit 4, you can show it either on the PCB itself, which means you have multiple copies of the design visible, or you can show it where it is on the design. There's a couple of ways we can do it. So, because we don't have the way to visualize a PCB yet, we're going to go with the simple option, just show where it is on the design. But later what I want to do is expand the definition of a PCB so it's got the position and orientation of the designs on a PCB, because you have one design repeated, right? So you need to be able to rotate it and say it goes this way, or it's 45-degree angle and they tessellated it in some weird way for whatever reason. Who knows? So we're just going to do the placement on the design as opposed to the placement on the PCB. Right. So we've got our PCB, we've got our definition of a PCB, and I've created this Explorer. And the only thing you can explore at the moment is the configuration, which is what we're looking at. But what we want to be able to do is, when we click on this, show the PCB. When we click on one of these, show the top of the PCB with all the designs, and the bottom, and so on. And we want to define the panelization, all that kind of thing. But we're not quite there yet. Today, what we're going to try and do is, when we click on Design A Top, we want to show the Gerber files for that design on the right-hand side of this panel. So, Design A is comprised of a list of Gerbers. We can attach Gerber files to it. I'll just randomly assign some Gerber files from another project to it. It doesn't really matter which ones we're using for this right now, but I'm just picking the list of files. We're just going to say the ones that we were looking at, board outline, right? Oh, not top dimension, top assembly, these ones. Right. And we'll do the same for the bottom. We don't need board outline again. Assembly and mask. Right. So we've got some Gerber files. Great. And then we can save the PCB. Great. Okay. So now we've got some Gerber files assigned to a PCB. So when we click on one of these, we want to display those Gerber files on the right hand side. That's what we're going to try and get some of done today. Now, let's have a quick look at the project structure of the Gerber viewer for a moment. So, if you remember, the Gerber viewer is in a separate crate. Right, and we've got a GUI for it. Let me open up the other project, Gerber viewer. New window. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Right, and we created a demo app, which I expanded a little bit recently, which somewhere has a main method in it when my IDE catches up. There we go. And we can run it. And for fun, I expanded this so that it displays like a little animated Gerber showing off the new rendering, sort of rotation features. Magic. So we're displaying stars and pluses and all this kind of thing, and it's using macros and all this, but we don't care about too much about the detail of what is actually going on. But the idea here is that there's one layer of a Gerber file being displayed in a bounding box. And there's two bounding boxes actually. The green is not part of the Gerber file. That's showing the bounding box of the Gerber contents. And the red one is an axis aligned bounding box. And you use that red one if you want to display something on screen. So you need to know the outline of what the thing is that you want to display, and then you draw an axis line you calculate an axis line bounding box, and then you can go to that thing in coordinate space. Right, so that's the demo app. The demo app basically works by loading up a Gerber file, load, or parse in fact. You get a Gerber document, and when you get a Gerber document, that has some commands in it. You get the commands from it, and you create a layer. And then once you've got a layer, this Gerber layer is then eventually used by the Gerber renderer, which is part of the Gerber Viewer crate, to render the layer. And then you just repeat that for each layer, one after the other, and you get a bunch of triangles in whatever colour you give it. White in this case. Right. So that's what we've got to do. We've basically just got to load a layer for a file and render it using the renderer. But before we can render stuff, we need to know about that bounding box that we were talking about. So that information, and I'm refreshing my own memory as I'm talking to you guys, that information is calculated just after you load the file. So you load the Gerber file, and then given the layer, you now have a bunch of primitives which have coordinates, and then you can find the bounding box from all of those things. So in order to do that, you ask the Gerber layer for its bounding box, and then you can, and if you've got a viewport, which is the space on screen that you want to display something, if you've got a viewport with coordinates, and then width and height, and then you've got a Gerber viewer bounding box, coordinate top left, coordinate bottom right, then you can work out how to scale it so that one thing fits in the other. So essentially the zoom level. And you can also work out where the center of it is as well, by getting the center from the bounding box. And then you basically have the information you need in order to display the file. So, right. So that's how the demo app works. So we need to borrow bits of this, and we also need to borrow bits of the other project, which is the more complicated Gerber viewer, which does some additional things. Not too many additional things. But basically it goes through the same process of loading the individual layers. Let me find it. Right. Add layer. This is what it is. So add layer from file. Open Gerber file. Yeah, so if you select some layers from the file selector, it basically calls Open Gerber layer inner, or yeah, Open Gerber file inner, and that adds it to a list of Gerber files that it's got. And then once you've got a list of Gerber files, you have to calculate the bounding box that contains all of them. But maybe you don't want to have the bounding box for all of them. I don't know, because sometimes the dimensions, you might not necessarily want that. But anyway, We'll come to that later. But if you've got two Gerber files, you could have one of them which has just got a little dot in the middle of it, right? And then you could have another Gerber file which has got a box and lots of other things. So the bounding boxes of each of these things are different. So you need to work out the bounding box that contains all of the bounding boxes. Right, so we need that. What else have we got to do? That's parsing it, loading layer files, and then rendering. Yeah, rendering. So rendering is more or less the same. Paint. Let me find the paint layer. Here it is, and it basically just iterates over it. Iterates over all the layers, painting each one. So we're going to borrow some of this too. Let's have a look at how we find the state for the individual layers. So we've got this state layers. And for each layer, we've got the path of it. We've got the layer view state, the Gerber layer itself, and the corresponding document. Now, why do you need the document as well? Yeah, good question you ask. The document contains the Gerber command for the shape, right? So at the moment all we've got for a Gerber layer is a bunch of shapes. But if we want to say highlight J16, for example, with the Gerber specification, you can say here is where J16 is, and there can be Gerber commands which define that. Now at the moment I don't have any support for that, but at some point the Gerber viewer can be expanded so that when you click on things it shows you information about what you clicked on, and also so that in the planning software we can use that Gerber information to better locate the item being clicked on. But we're going to need the document as well. Now the layer view state, what's in this? This has got some flags in it and some colours in it and a rotation and whether it should be mirrored and the various origins of it as well. We'll come to all the design origins and all that stuff a bit later. Yeah. Let me quickly show you that actually. Why not? So design origin. Let's have a quick look at that for a moment. So here, if you notice on the bottom left hand side down here, it's got some coordinates, right? If I hover over the bottom left of this, the coordinate that I get here is 10 by 10 millimeters. If I hover over the center of the board here, that is about 25 by 15 or so, right? So there's two coordinates of interest here. One, the bottom left, and two, the center of the board. If I do a rotation at the moment, I'll just make this a bit bigger. If I try and rotate it, it rotates it like this, which isn't necessarily what you want. If we say the design offset is that 10 by 10, it goes the wrong way. So you have to use negative inputs on there, so fine. So now when we rotate it, it does this. Right, so it rotates it around the origin. But what we need to do is rotate it around the center of the board, really. For that, we need to know the center of rotation, which is, I think it was 14.75. And if I do it now, it's like that. And then up is about 5 or 6 or something. 6, I think it was. And now it rotates around the center of the board. Yay. So that's design origins and offset design origin center offset from origin. Yeah. Various different things there. Okay, so we're going to need to know about that. That's what these two are anyway. Design origin and design offsets. And potentially each Gerber layer could have a different design origin and design offset. They normally wouldn't have a different design origin, but they probably would have a different. They could have a design offset depending on how you exported them. And what's also interesting is that you can't calculate the center of a design based on the bounding boxes, it turns out. And the reason for that is if you look at the assembly layer versus the actual place that you want to rotate the PCB around, the assembly layer has got a massive bounding box, and if you picked the center of that bounding box, it wouldn't be the same as if you picked the center of this bounding box, which you can see on screen highlighted by the red box. Right, you have a completely different bounding box. So you can't use the Gerber's bounding box to work out the center of it. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could, but you have to get clever about it. So if we said that the board outline is the one that you use to work out the center, then I suppose we could. Right? But you'd have to know which Gerber file is the board outline, and that is the one to use to calculate the center, I suppose. Yeah, that probably would work actually. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that before. So perhaps we can pre-calculate the design origin offset. And I suppose we could also use that layer to work out the design offset as well as the origin. So for instance, if we had zeros here and here, and if we took the design and worked out which point was closest to origin, we could use that distance as the offset, right? Minus 10, minus 10. And if this point was over here, then it'd be this point which would be closer to the origin, and it would be like plus 10 minus, or plus 10 minus 5, or, you know, that kind of thing. So I suppose, yeah, okay, I'll have a think about that. Anyway. Yeah, right, moving on. So, we've got state, we've got document, we've got commands, we've got layers, and we've got view state, which we need. We need this view state. This view state is the translation and the scale. We've got colors, we've got a couple of flags, and we've got some mirroring options, which we don't need. So, yeah, all right then. Let's see what we can do. So, back to the PCB file. Now, let's locate that in the project. Here we go. So, if you've been following along, the GUI, Planner GUI, this GUI, has tabs for different types of documents that you can open. So the home is one kind of thing that you can open, the project is another kind of thing you can open, and the PCB now is another kind of thing that you can open. And then in each of these things that you can open, you can potentially have your own tabs in there. So the PCB has a configuration tab and it has an Explorer tab. So probably what we need is another tab for displaying Gerbers. Let's do that. So PCB is defined as this. It's got tabs. Let's add some tabs. Somewhere we've got a list of tab kinds, which I'm struggling to find. There. Where is this defined? Oh, here it is. Maybe I could move that. Yeah, let me relocate that. Oh, not like that though. Let's use the IDE to do it. Refactor, move. That's the thing. If something isn't in the first place that you look at when you haven't looked for it for a while, your current idea of where it should be is probably correct. Yeah. Right. Anyway, move. We're going to move that into tabs. Probably correct. It might not be. Oh, we've got conflicts. Okay, I might move that later. Not now. Okay. So we need a new tab kind. Let's go. Well, we could just blindly go Gerber viewer. But okay, let's just do Gerber viewer. I'm thinking about, whether it should be like design Gerber viewer or PCB Gerber viewer or something on those lines. But for now, it's going to be a design Gerber viewer because all we've got is designs. And if it turns out that we want a different one later, we'll rename it and everything will be fine. So, yes, great. So we need a Gerber viewer tab, and we need to update this to work with Gerber viewer tabs. But let's do this one first. And that's going to be the same for this one. So what we're doing here is updating the code that delegates labels, UIs, and closing behavior to the tab. We don't have the tab yet, but we'll work that out in a minute. So we need the Gerber viewer tabs. So let's create a module, I suppose. Gerber viewer tab, fine, and create a file for it. Now, let's have a look at the Explorer tab because it's simpler. As to the basic things that you need for a tab, you need a component, you need somewhere building itself, you need a command, an action, a context, and a UI component, and some code to render a UI and handle the commands. And you need some code which creates a label, a UI, and on-close. So we basically want a bunch of this stuff. So we're just going to borrow all this plumbing. And then we're going to do some renaming. Don't want any of this. Do want one of these. We want the structure itself, I suppose. Right. So let's do a bit of renaming. So if we search for Explorer and replace that with what? Gerber view? Yeah. Replace everything. And oh dear. I did that wrong. Oh dear. There we go. I need to do case sensitive. Fine. And because we borrowed it from somewhere else, it's incorrectly got some weird imports, which we're gonna delete. And it's got a PCB overview. I'm going to delete this, and then we'll just get a clean thing that lets us display a tab first, and then we'll add the things to it that we need. Because I don't know what we need right now. We don't need any of this malarkey. Let's just display a spinner. We don't have any commands to deal with at the moment. Let's say none. One of the commands that's going to go in here at some point is going to be locate with like X, Y. But we're not there yet. So if we get a command that says none, then we return no action. Fine. Yeah. We need to fix that. Gerber viewer tab label. What state is this? PCB UI state. Yeah. Yeah, we've got to fix this as well. PCB tab. Yeah. We're going to have to update that in a moment. So we've got the skeleton of a tab. Fine. But now we need to be able to instantiate the tabs and close the tabs and have somewhere to store the instances of tabs. And that's in here. Now, because a PCB can have multiple designs, we probably want multiple tabs. Yes. So that Gerber UI is where we're going to be having our Gerber layers and all this kind of thing, right? The question is, how are we going to know which Gerber viewer tab to pick? So if we're looking at the project, the PCB structure, we had top, bottom, and so on. Probably, or one thought, maybe not probably, is that within the PCB there is potentially a path to a Gerber viewer. Yeah. So if we stored the PCB path in the Gerber viewer, then we could identify which one we need. Because we need more than one. So what's this going to be? A hash map of and I'm not just doing one to start with because I know we need more than one in this particular case. Often you should start with just one and then add more when you need to add more, but in this case I already know I need more than one. Let's just go with string for now. And because I don't want to think about the paths, I just want to go, here's one, make it work. Hash map, import that. Right. So that means we need to have some initialization code for the hash map, like so. What other red things are there right now? We've got this, which we can import now, which is good. Now, just refreshing my memory on this. The other tab is going to have actions and it's going to have commands that need to be sent to it. So we need to add handling and support for all that. Let's have a look and see what red things there are first. Right. So here what's happening, it's trying to get the state for one tab, this tab, from a list of tabs, but it doesn't know, it can't do that because it's a vector. So this context here wait, no, not that context. No, the self for this is going to need to have that same path thing. So let's say P, I don't know, let's do path string. We can rename this. It's a bit weird because we've got path and path buff everywhere, and I don't want to confuse the two because it's not the same. It's let's call it navigation path, like so. Right. So now, given a navigation path, when we create it and store it, we've got some way of accessing the right state from here. And then what is this going to be? Doesn't need to be mutable. We just need to get and then self dot. Wait. Why don't I see that? That's weird. Dot navigation path? Is it because it's being a bit funky? We know it's going to be there. Why is it complaining about this? Self here is a Gerber viewer tab. Oh. Yeah. I think that might have been in the wrong place. It might need to be in both places. But it definitely needs to be here. So let's move it so it's only there. Navigation path. Right, so now we've got the tab. Now we've got that. We've got an instance, I suppose. Right, so now it defers the UI rendering to the components UI method, which is this one, which is what actually draws the UI. Okay, great. So we've got that. Let's close this. That one. Let's see if it compiles. Come on. But we need to deal with this stuff. Come on, building build a lot. There it goes. It built. Fantastic. Right. But nothing uses this yet. It says it's unused. Right. So we need to create some of these. So let's deal with creating one. Let's just run it again and look at the UI to remind ourselves of what it is that we're trying to do. So we want to have it so that when we click on Design A, it creates a tab if one doesn't already exist, and then displays some Gerber viewers. So this is where we need to handle the creating of tabs. But at the moment, when I double click on it, it expands and collapses this. And there's also this selection ability, which we probably need to remove from this tree view thing as well. But I don't really want to get into the tree view stuff today. But what's important is that down the bottom of the screen, you can see this log entry. When I double click on one of these, it goes action activate selection 6 modifiers, and then it's got some whatever key was pressed when I double clicked it, right? For example, pressing shift. So we need to handle this. Now, we've clearly got some code which displays this debug output. So if we look for that, that's where we need to start. So in the Explorer tab, we've got a bit of code here which prints out that information. So this is where we need to go. If you clicked on a path, then open the Gerber viewer. Now, there's lots of things that you could potentially click on, each of which you need to handle in different ways. But I don't want to do that today. We handled that in the Project Explorer. By creating little handler methods and iterating over the handler method until each one said, oh look, here's some commands to do, here's some UI commands to do. But I don't want to do changes to the Project Explorer today. So what we're going to do is, if you double click on anything in the tree, it's going to display the first design's Gerbers, and that's all we need to make it work today, I suppose. So we're just going to add some code here. Yeah. So I don't know what. Self.show Gerber viewer, and we're just going to say, well, I suppose we could build like a path, I suppose. Navigation path, because at some point each of the nodes in the tree are going to have a navigation path, but that's not today. So we're just going to build a navigation path and give that to the thing that's supposed to open Gerber viewers. What? I don't know. Designs 0. Seems about right. Why not? Let's make this a string. And then clone it as if we would normally. So we need this. Great. So we've got this navigation path. Yeah. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Okay. So how do we display one of the existing tabs? That's a good question. I don't remember. This is the thing when you write so much code, you can't remember it all after a while. If your project is small, you remember everything you've done. But when your project is large, it grows larger than your ability to remember it. So when the tab first opens, PCB mod is what we're trying to find. This is how we create a tab. So yeah, wrong. We did this wrong. Let's go back to where I was. What we're supposed to be doing is not calling show Gerber viewer here, but in fact something like sender self dot component send, and then we want a Explorer UI command of navigate with a navigation path. Yeah. So I've already got this command, and it's confusing me slightly because one command should be used to tell the Explorer to navigate somewhere, and the other should be used to say I did something. So I don't think we want this one. Let's look at how we did it in the Project Explorer to refresh our memory. So when we clicked on something, well, we did use navigate for it with a path. Okay, well, we will do that then. Handle navigation. Oh look, we handled navigation. Amazing. Well, sort of. But this is the navigation path. We've got a proper type for this already, which I forgot about entirely. So fine. Let's go back to this Gerber viewer thing. Down here, navigation path. And then this thing needs to be a navigation path, I suppose. Something like that. Oh no, default's not implemented for it. Oh, I suppose then. Well, I suppose we could have a default for a navigation path, which could be slash. Oh wait, I suppose like that. Root seems reasonable for a navigation path. Okay, fine. So that should shut these up. But it's not something that can be serialized and deserialized yet, so we need to fix that. Serialize and deserialize that, that's fine. Okay. So now it's complaining hash is not implemented for navigation path. Yeah. Hash. EQ next. How about now? There we go. Right. That fixed that. So now we need to add handling for paths on the Explorer, which we've got. Yeah. So this is how we handle the path. So it's true we need to select the path if we're given a path, and then we need to do whatever action is required based on that path. Let's look at the Project Explorer. So this one basically just does the same thing. This is the Project Explorer tab as opposed to the PCB Explorer tab. So this returns an Explorer UI action to navigate. And then we'll just have a quick look at how this is handled. Here. And it goes self-navigate with a beginner path. And then it does the appropriate handling based on the path. And then this is where it goes show PCB or show unit assignments and opens up other tabs. Right. Yeah. I suppose we could borrow some of this code as well. Let's do it. So, in the PCB tab, we've got some code which handles commands. Explorer, navigate, self-navigate here, this one. And we've got a helpful to do here. Right. So let's borrow the definition of some handlers and how to handle the handlers. No. Oh, that's interesting. And then let's borrow two of them. Because we already have the show configuration thing. So show wait, what? Oh, yes. No. This needs to be PCB. PCB key. It was showing me the wrong list of auto completion things. This needs to be PCB action, right? And this needs to be just let's follow the same pattern. Show configuration. And we've already got PCB action of task, I think. Yep. So we can do that. This takes an argument. We need a path, which is going to be self.path cloned. So we've got a handler for the root. Let's go back to the PCB Explorer. And when we're displaying a tree, right, each tree item has a node ID. The first one we add is 0. So we know we're on 0, So I suppose in our handler like this, we can quickly hack this up to say because this activation here is an activate and it's got the selected and the modifiers, and this is the node ID type and this is a number which is going to be 0. So if we say I don't know, activation in selected. Oops. Node ID, I suppose it's going to be. And we're just going to do this for now. And if the node ID is 0, then we're going to say the navigation path is PCB/. Right. Otherwise, it's going to be what we said earlier, but with PCB prefix to it. Right. And then we've got navigation path, and then we can send a message for each navigation path for every selected item. Happy days. Oh, it does help if you have an equals. There we go. So, yeah. And then later, we'll have a list of navigation paths for the things that are in the tree, and we'll pick the right one instead of building it like this. So we're sending the right path, and we're trying to handle the path. So if it's PCB/, then we open the configuration thing. But the handlers are going to need different things. We need the path to be passed in. It's a bit different, this. We've got the navigation path. Let's rename this. We'll keep the PCB key, and we'll also add a reference to that. Okay, so the handler needs to be called different things. Now we don't have a key here. Let's remove this key until we know we need it. Let's rename this to navigation path. And then put self.path here. Okay. And then delete that. Because the idea is that each handler is supposed to be returning a PCB action. Right. So then we need to go handle Gerber viewer. And then we need one of these for handling Gerber viewers. And then I'm just going to hard code it. What was the path we said? Designs 0. Show Gerber viewer. And I'm going to pass the navigation path to it, which is a reference already. This PCB test. Oh, we do need a key here. Okay. So I suppose we need to get that from somewhere. Oops. This isn't a project, this is a PCB. Oops. I didn't rename it the right way. So we need this method, which is fine. I have a feeling that we need this PCB key. So let's give it two things. No, maybe not. So, but we need it for this, right? So the navigate is called by this. Do we have a PCB key in this method? Yes, we do. Can't find the code that I was just looking at. Where's navigate gone? There it is. Key. Wait. No, not that. Here. That's where we need it. And is this an actual key? It is an actual key. Because we're dereferencing it here, so we'll follow the same pattern. Cannot borrow star self with immutable is always borrowed as immutable. Where? Oh, here. Okay, fine. Fine. So we've got to clone that. And then do that. Fine. So now, finally, we have a place where we can try and open a tab. Right, so we've got this show configuration, and we've got show Gerber viewer. And it's going to be like this, and let's put it next to it. I'm just going to use that as a template. Show Gerber viewer. Let's just comment everything out and go through it line by line. Yeah. So the way that a configuration tab is shown is the configuration tab handler. No. When a view is received, the tab is created at that point. Wait, no, it's not. No. I was thinking about the other bit of code. Okay, fine. So let's change this to navigation path like this. Right, and then we get the PCB. We look through the list of tabs and we see if it's another Gerber viewer tab, and if the tab's navigation path is the same as wait, not that tab. Wait, yes. There's tabs. Oh my gosh, good lord. If that one is the same as, yeah. Because there's two candidates here in this, which is really confusing. It's basically something like that. And then if there's no tab, then we create a new tab. But not a configuration tab. We want a Gerber viewer tab. And we need to create a new one. That takes the navigation path. Oh. Yeah, like that. And we can pass in the navigation path. Thus. Right. And then we need to do something else afterwards. We need to create a task. Which is going to be what? Show it seems a bit weird. Do we want a UI command to do show tab with a navigation path? Let me check the project and see what we did with that. Let's have a look at the phase tab and see what we did there. Yeah. This is how we showed a phase. So we look for the tab, and if it was the right one, then there was nothing else to do. Otherwise, we created the tab. Ah, yeah, we need to do that as well. Let's borrow this. Yeah, because we need to create the UI state in addition to the tab. Go view tab. Too many things. Where's my PCB? Here he is. Yeah. I think we want something like that. So we need to get the state and then create the new UI and then map the set of the component mapping. Right, that's fine. So, but we're not dealing with projects. We're dealing with PCBs. And we're not dealing with phases. We're dealing with Gerber viewers. And navigation paths. References to them. So we ensure there's a Gerber viewer for the navigation path. Then we're going to create a new Gerber viewer UI with nothing. And the idea is that we're inserting that into the list of Gerber viewer UIs into the hash map. And because the Gerber viewer has the potential to emit commands, we need to have a command handler and mapper. So we need a Gerber viewer UI command. And instead of it being given a phase, it's going to have probably a navigation path, so that we know which one sent the command. So we need an enum variant for that. It's a lot of boilerplate code before you can even display a Gerber file. That's what we're learning today. Ensure Gerber view. Right. So we need this key as well. We need the key. Yeah. Yeah. So we need an actual PCB key here. Yeah, okay. So now we need to deal with what happens after we do the show thing. So let's refer back to the Project Explorer, or rather the project. If I can find it. That one. So, for instance, we were looking at phases, handle phase. Oh, phase, not phases. We go show phase, and this goes find the tab. If there's a tab, show a debug message. If there's not, make sure the UI state exists, and then request some views. But we've already got all the information we need at this point in the PCB thing, which is the list of Gerber files for the design, which is in the PCB overview, so we don't need that. And then it creates the tab, and then the tab should have, at that point, all the information it needs to display something. Yeah. Okay, and now I'm going to compile it. I know we're missing some action handling, but it'll tell us where it is. Candidate tab is this, and this is a PCB tab kind. Wait, what? Gerber viewer tab has a navigation path. PCB tab kind. Okay. Let's just do that for now. Right. This is the bit that I was trying to find. So we'll deal with this now, and then I'll come back to the other error. So this is how we handle Explorer commands. So we need something that's like that. But not Explorer commands. It's going to be the other one, which is the Gerber viewer UI command. Thus, so yeah, then we need, instead of this, to find the right Gerber instance, Gerber viewer UI instance, and then call its update method. And we can do that using navigation paths. So we can go yeah, no, that was right. This is the one we want to change. Gerber UI. But we haven't got one, we've got a hash map of them. So then we need to get mutably the right one. And then unwrap it. We know one's always going to be there. We've got the wrong kind of context here now. This needs to be a Gerber viewer UI, Gerber viewer UI context. Wait. Import that, which doesn't have much in it, which is fine, but we still need one. Then we have to say, we have to deal with the actions. And if there's no action, then we don't do anything. But now we've got the plumbing in, ready to handle actions. Should there be any? Oh my god. Right. So we've got mismatch types over here. Showing a Gerber view with navigation path. Showing the Gerber view needs a navigation path. I think we're looking at the wrong one here. We're supposed to be looking at this navigation path. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And then this one needs to be what? Clone it? Yeah. It compiled. Can we show a tab? It's a lot of work just to show a tab, isn't it? Right. So, if we close this configuration thing and then double click this, excellent. Our tab handling code worked. Our double clicking code here worked, because we added that. So if I click anything else, it's supposed to display a Gerber viewer. Oh my god. We've got a tab with a spinner in the middle. Oh, amazing. Things should get a little bit more interesting from here on out. So we're missing the tab title, so let's quickly fix that. Now, we created Let's just do a work in progress commit. Of skeleton code for adding a Gerber viewer tab. Sure. And then we'll come back and amend this in a minute. Let's close all the other tabs because there's too many. Tabs everywhere. Right, brain. Gerber viewer tab had a title defined by this translation key, which we need to define in the list of translations. So we got the PCB stuff. Now what is this going to be? Because we can't really just display like Gerber viewer. We need like the design name and like some other information. So let's just go, I don't know. It seems a bit redundant to have a translation which just displays the title. That's what I think. I don't think we need it. If you ain't gonna need it. Yagdi. No. Let's build our label a different way. Let's just, you know, let's just, for now, we're just going to use the navigation path in its entirety. But at some point, we'll do something better. And when we create a new one using the navigation path, we could perhaps build a label from it. I don't know. Not entirely sure. Or we could pass something in, I don't know. But let's just do that for now. But at least now it'll be big enough that you can actually click on it and see the difference between multiple ones. Yeah. And let's cargo format that. Yeah. I'll review these commits post-stream. I won't bore you with that right now. Right, let's try and get these Gerbers displayed. Come on. So we've got a Gerber viewer tab, and currently it's displaying a spinner in the middle. Now we can start borrowing stuff from the other code that we were looking at earlier at the start of the stream. So, I mean, we could load the things in a thread in the background, but that feels like an improvement. Let's just delete this. Okay. So, we're going to need some layers. Let's say layers. And then we're going to just refer to the Gerber viewer code where we had our list of layers, because we know all this code works, right? No, not this project. But this one. We're just going to borrow things from here. So state layers, we're going to have exactly this. Yoink. We've got Gerber viewer state. Well, we probably should borrow quite a lot more than this. Okay, instead of putting layers in stuff like this, let's do what this app did, where the state had one of these. And let's put all the Gerber viewer. I mean, do we need to do that? Gerber UI, and then we've got a thing in the middle of the UI, and there might be other things that we need to futz around with, and you want to deal with all the things that you're going to mutate in the same place. So yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Let's go Gerber state, and we're going to make it something we can independently modify. Gerber viewer state seems reasonable. Okay. Gerber view state is probably best. Let's use the same naming. Yeah. We're gonna have this. We need one of these, yes. We're probably going to need all of these things. Oh, let's just add them as we need them. Otherwise, it's going to be too much for my poor little brain to handle. And then what was in UI state? We're probably going to need these as well. Center screen. Yeah, we're definitely going to need these in order to do the rendering. So we're going to need that. And we're going to need this. Layer view state. Yep. Because at the moment, all we've got is a list of Gerber files and the PCB side that they relate to. Yeah, let's borrow some of this, but not all of it. Just as well I wrote my little prototype first, isn't it? They're always going to be enabled for now. And then we're going to need some types. And these types come from the Gerber viewer crate. So I suppose we need to add a dependency to the planner app. There's the one. And if we look at the dependency that we used in the Gerber viewer, we can borrow the same line of code. That one. Oh my god. Gerber rendering. It's using a version that's too old, so that's fine. Yeah. And now we can import things because the one that it was using was too old. So we've got this UI state thing here now. So let's get rid of that. Get rid of this. And we were trying to find the things that we need from here. going to borrow this. We don't need the cursor stuff yet. If we need that, we'll add it back in. Do you know, it's probably useful to keep that. I'm just going to keep it because it's a trivial bit of code. Oh wait, hold on. No, we just import this. I've already got this code. We're using it from the library. We don't need to copy and paste that. It's fine. Because that's one of the things I did recently with the Gerber view crate. I took out some of the stuff from the Gerber view and put it in the crate so that both the example, this code, and the Gerber view can all use the same stuff. Much better. Right. So we've got some missing fields. We've got a new state. We need value. Can we go default on this? I have a feeling we can't. Gerber view state doesn't implement default, so that ain't going to work. So in this bit we created one. Oh no, look, we do have a default implementation. We need to borrow the default implementation. Gerber view state. We're going to keep the bits for this that we need. So the layers can be an empty vector. That's fine. Let me look at what the view was. We're going to need that. We're going to need these flags. Oh. We are going to need the bounding box as well. We only need the bounding box vertices if you want to display it. So we're going to need the bounding box. Yeah. Okay. Then we've got the layers. And instead of just hard coding these to 0 in the paint layer code, I'm just going to hard code them to 0 in the default. And there's going to be no UI that updates them. But, you know, it's fine for now. Design, origin, and whatever. And then same goes for the mirroring as well. Yeah, so we're going to need all this stuff. Accept that. Okay, fine. Right. Now we need to have some code which initializes this state. Okay. So, we don't care about reset at the moment. In the Go view, there's a reset button. We haven't got that, so we don't need it. Let's have a look where our add layer is called. So we need some of this stuff. Add Gerber layer from file. It goes parse the Gerber, find the state, make a color, create the new layer, copy the offset, from the view state to the layer, then add the layer to the state. So basically you need all of this. Except that we don't have parse Gerber yet. And we don't have new on layer view state. It's confused. Let's deal with the confusion then. So we've got parse Gerber. And we're basically going to want pretty much most of this as well. Except the stuff with logging. We don't need that. We're going to need this. And here we're just going to go info. And here we're just going to go error. Oh, not 2 exclamation marks though. But we could have errors when we parse Gerbers. Oh no. Oh no. We need another type. We need a... Let's put it down here. We need an enum for Gerber viewer UI error. Which could be an IO error. We're going to borrow this as well. How much code can we write by copying and pasting? That is the question for today. All of it. Okay. Now, arguably, the Gerber parsing code could be in the app core, but I don't think so. I don't think it belongs in the planner core. No. No. We don't have any log. We do have a path. We are going to return one of these like this. We don't have any way of storing the log information. I might add that back later, but it's not going to be in the same way. And this state isn't called that, it's called something else. Wait, hold on. Did I put that in the wrong place? I think I did. Hold on. Oh, dear me. Yeah, this. This is in the Gerber view. That's in the wrong implementation. So this needs to be in here. That's better. It's a bit funny. I'm just going to leave it there for now. Right, so now let's have a look. Yeah, so this could potentially fail. With a parser error. So it maps it to a parse error. So we're going to borrow that as well. Fine. Okay. Right. So we need this layer view state now as well, which needs a new method, which is basically going to be the same as all this except for the enabled thing, because they're always going to be enabled. Okay. Wait, hold on, Gerber view state. Yeah. Yeah. We can't do debug. Gerber layer doesn't have debug. Yeah. Probably could make it so these do. Look, command's got debug on it. Gerber primitive's got debug on it. So in my Gerber view, I could probably add debug to this, but I'll do that later. I'm going to add a to-do for that. All right. It's on my list. So we're just going to ignore this for now in in here, where we're deriving debug. And that should shut this warning up. There it goes. So this isn't state here, this is Gerber state. There we go. But it's not an option, so it's already set to default because Gerber viewer state has a default, so that's fine. So we just need to get a mutable reference to it. Do we need? No, we don't need a mutable reference. We just need a reference to it. But it's one of these funny value objects, so we need to go lock and unwrap, and then we can use it. We did need a mutable reference to it. It was fine. But we don't do it like that, do we? We just do this, right? Well, no, I was right. Wait a second. Oh, because we don't have the add layer thing. Yeah, I was right. We don't need one of those. I just don't have the method yet. Okay. So we need that. So adding a Gerber from files. So the idea is we're going to call this method a bunch of times, one for each Gerber layer, which the design has. So we'll come back to doing that, the fact that this is unused, in a little bit. But we do need the rest of the plumbing code for adding layers. So let's carry on with that. So this is in the state here. That's not going to be any different. And these are going to be no different either. We could borrow quite a lot of this code, it turns out. Yeah. Okay, fine. You know, after I've done all this, I can come back and go, well, can we put some of this in a like reusable module somewhere so that the other eGUI app thing can use this stuff too? Or I don't know. Right, so we need to add a layer and we need to make sure that the view is centered. So in order to make the view centered, you need a bounding box. In order to get a bounding box, you need to call update bounding box from layers. So we need that. Right, and I'm gonna delete these now because that's the only thing we didn't need. Now we've got this request center view thing, which we need this. So we need that. We're going to need something like this request center view for locating a placement by its Gerber positions. So we've got that. Let me see where this reset view is called. View needs view centering. Yeah, we're going to need that because we've got this flag and it is set to true by default. So we are going to need this reset view. The reset view method and we've got a constant that we need now as well. The reset view method updates the bounding box from all of the layers and then works out what the scale is and where the center of the content is and what the view translation is. Right, so we need all that, but we've got this constant here. So we're going to borrow that. Thus, we've got a red thing here. And here we're using this enabled flag. We basically don't need to filter out the layers that aren't enabled, so we just delete that line. Okay. So if we try and compile it now, maybe it compiles, but it's not going to do anything because we've not called add layer, and we've also not tried to paint the layers yet. Let's add the rendering code. I think we're getting there. We're getting there now. Right. So the rendering code in the Gerber viewer app, which displays multiple layers, somewhere has got a call to paint layer, which I'm desperately trying to scroll towards. Yeah, eGUI apps, eGUI layout code. Yeah, I could probably refactor some of these into little methods and stuff like that at some point, but format coordinates, left panel, center panel, we're getting there. Right, so this is the bit that we need. This is where we're supposed to be displaying a UI. So we're gonna borrow some of this. We're gonna allocate a rectangle and create a viewport from the allocated rectangle. Thus. Right, and then we've got to look at this state thing and get stuff out of it. So we're going to need to follow this same pattern of getting the state. From here. And we'll add a spinner back in for good measure. Okay. We could switch this around and go let some whatever equals that, and then go else, and then do the thing and return immediately. And now we've reduced the nesting level somewhat. Thus. But, oh, right. It's not an option, is it? I keep thinking it's an option, but it's not. So we don't need any of this, it turns out, after all. Because it's a value object and not an option. So we go lock, unwrap. Forgot what type it was. Okay. Then we have to check the state and see if it needs these things. Maybe we can have a state.update viewport and then it manages itself. Probably would be better. Anyway, right. So then we've already got this update thing. I mean, like, I probably should refactor that so that it's inside this method. Yeah, I'll do that. But, yeah, fine. Get it working, then get it working well. And then we've got a bounding box, which we don't care about. And then we've got some trace logging, which we don't really care about at the moment. Then, finally, we paint the layers. Okay. So, if it's enabled, do some stuff. I mean, really, that should be a filter there, shouldn't it, in the other bit of code? But never mind. We don't have an enabled flag, so we're just going to do this. These are going to be false. Use unique shape and polygon numbering. Don't need those. And then we're also going to borrow the drawing crosshairs code because we want to. And if we had some bounding boxes, we could draw it, but we're not getting. And maybe we can draw some Go files, but we still haven't told it which files to use. Can't borrow state is mutable more than once at a time. Okay. First mutable borrow occurs here. State. Well, that's fun. What do we need to? Does it? Oh, hold on. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Not ideal. Wasn't expecting this problem. So this state. is an option. Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting this. So we need a mutable reference to the view. But this, we can't take... Wait, what? We've got a UI state and we've got that. Oh, I see. So they both live in the same place. Let me... Yeah. What? Should we just copy it out temporarily and then put it back in afterwards? I think the problem is that we've got both of these things in here. So how about we say... Let's move this out of here. I think. If we move the UI state out there, we can, yeah. So if we do the same thing like we're doing here. Like this. Then we can borrow each things independently. Yeah, let's do that. Seems reasonable, I suppose. Right. Oh, it compiles. That's half the battle. That's good. So, now, we've got a navigation path, and we've got a key, but we don't have a list of Gerber files. So, we need a list of Gerber files from somewhere. Let's get rid of all these. Okay. So, where does the list of Gerber files come from? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. It comes from somewhere in here. That's where it goes. No. That's where it comes from. Design index, list of Gerber files on the PCB. So let's go back to the PCB tab and note that a PCB tab owns no, it doesn't own it, but every so often oh my god, where's this code? Okay, Right. When the tab is displayed, it requests a view. The view that's requested is a PCB view. In the PCB view, you get a PCB overview. In a PCB overview, you get the list of Gerber files for each design. Okay. So, when the UI receives the PCB overview, we can give a copy of the PCB overview or just a copy of the list of Gerber files to the Gerber viewer. I don't think the Gerber viewer needs to know anything else about the PCB. But let me just look at this for a moment. What is also important in here is this Gerber files has a PCB Gerber file item, which isn't just the name of the file. This thing contains the path to the Gerber file, which is the thing we're trying to load, and it also contains the PCB side and the purpose, and maybe there's going to be some other stuff there in the future too, but that's where the path comes from. So we need the PCB Gerber items for the design. So what we've got to do is say, look for the tabs when we receive this view. Look for the tabs. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the other things that are going to cause a problem. Look for the Gerber viewer tabs that are currently open. And update them. But I don't think we want to do that. Because at the point in time that we're receiving a PCB view, we might not even have a tab open. Yes. We need to call this with the path, right? And Gerber layer file. Yes. Let me look for this in the Gerber viewer. Yeah. I'm trying to work out which bit of code makes sure that the view is reset. Because every time you add a file, this bit does. Update bounding box from request center view, yeah. An update bounding box from layer will reset things. That's fine. Request center view, yeah. So that's fine. So if we open up a tab with no files, it won't display anything because the list of Gerber files is going to be empty and the view just needs to be reset. And then when you add the first layer, that's going to cause the view to be reset. So that's all fine. how do we get? I mean, Maybe the tab does just take the PCB overview and it takes out the information that it wants from it and it leaves it to the view to do what it wants with the overview. I don't know. Maybe we just call for each on every single tab and then they just do what they want to do. I think that's probably the way to do it. And let them handle it. So let's do that. For Gerber Viewer tab, Gerber Viewer UI, I suppose. One of these. Update PCB overview, I suppose. Fine. And we're going to need to clone this one. And we're going to need to clone this one as well. I suppose we can do one fewer clone operation if we do it the other way round. It might be a good idea. Then why is this complaining? Oh, yeah. There we go. So GerberViewer doesn't have an update PCB overview. So let's borrow the method from the other one. The signature of it anyway. I suppose I could have done it like this. Let's just be lazy. So this thing is what needs to call this method. So we've got a PCB overview. So let's say, well, we need to know if this PCB overview, if this tab, if this tab, well, it will be. Oh, the navigation path, that's what we need to use. We don't have the navigation path here. So it turns out we do need the navigation path here. And we need that so that we can build like some design index. Do we need the navigation path, or do we just need the design index? No, I think we just need the design index, in fact, which will be obtained from the navigation path. To do get the design index from the navigation path. Fine. 0. We're just trying to display the first design at this point. So we're definitely not doing that. So now we can check to see if this, well, no, we just get the Gerbers from it, I suppose. Let Gerber paths, PCB overview, Gerbers, I suppose. Let's, instead of Gerber paths, Gerber items. And then I suppose we go, oh look, the AI is helping us out there nicely. We do that. Let path is Gerber item path. Clone it, and then do we really need to clone it? Yeah, we actually do. It's fine. We'll clone it here then. That's fine. I mean, since this has got I don't know, we could rearrange the cloning. Okay, we called it. Amazing. We've got an error here. What's the error? Do we have an error? What's the problem? Yes, because we don't have that, but we do. There we go. It's not moved there. Does it run? It might work. I think it might work. What do you think? Place your bets. Place your bets. Well, something happened. Not entirely what I expected. Was it because I'm looking at the wrong PCB? Hold on a second. No. That's interesting. Did it even try and load any files? I don't think it even tried to load any files. Yeah, I know what's going on. It's because we need to request the view when the tab is opened, so that the tab gets the list of Gerber files, because when the PCB tab loaded, the Gerber tab wasn't opened, and because the Gerber tab wasn't opened, its update PC overview method was never called because it didn't exist. That's what's going on. So in this PCB tab where we go ensure Gerber view and show Gerber view at this one, here we need to request the view again. I don't really like this, but I might try and find a better solution later. But anyway, we're going to say task done, and it's going to be a PCB action of UI command request PCB view request overview with self.path.clone, which is correct, Mr. AI. What's happening here? Yes, that's all good. Right, now it might get the list of paths. Let's see. Vamos a ver. We're displaying a Gerber file in the project. My work is done. Good night. No. If only things were that simple. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. We've got Gerbers in it. Cool. So let's just make this bigger and just think about the big picture of where we're trying to go with all this, right? So if we've got a project and we've got a PCB, we want to click on one of these. No. One of these. what we want to do is display this. Oh, where's my origin gone? I don't know where my origin's gone. Yeah, when the view resets, I need to... Am I left or right of it? Oh, I have no idea. Let's just do that again. Okay. My zoom position's not working properly as well. Need to fix that. So the idea is that when you click on one of these, it shows you where it is on the right-hand side over here. That's what we're trying to do. And now, within the same application, we have the ability to make that happen. Happy days. Yes. Okay. So, we did it. We got Gerber files in the Planner app. Amazing. But there's still much to be done. What's the performance like? I mean, it feels a bit slow here because it's having to render all this other crap every frame. I mean stuff every frame. What's it like with this on? Yeah, see, it's quicker. See, when you've got a table open, the table rendering slows down the Gerber rendering. Yeah. Oh, well, you know, we need to make the table rendering faster then, don't we? Oh my god, performance. Joy of joys. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're going to call it there for today because, you know, that's a success. So, what's left to do? The next thing to do, I don't know, I'm probably going to make the Explorer thing work so that it can display the other designs. And then after that, we can make it only display the Gerber layers for the top when you click on one of these. Well, that was handy. Yeah, closing and opening tabs works as well. And having multiple tabs open so you can see the top and the bottom at the same time, that'd be nice. And then doing the link between the two things, I guess, is up there on the list of stuff to make work. Yeah. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a think about it. But there we are. So, if you like this, press the little like button down the bottom. Don't forget to subscribe so you see the next video and see where this goes. And yeah, just remember, folks, it's only software. How hard can it be? We'll find out on the next one. See ya. Bye.